Welcome to Doc Trailers. Healthcare seems like such a mess. Today we're going to interview Patrick Norman, director and producer of Full Circle. Finally, a positive story about healthcare and cancer survival. But first, let's check out the trailer.
I didn't realize how much I would miss my nipples, which sounds weird. When I was 33, there was nothing. When I was 35, stage 4 breast cancer. When you're in the thick of it, you are just gung-ho, gotta do this, we gotta do this, we gotta do what the doctors are telling me. Once you've healed, you have those quiet moments where you see yourself.
After the mastectomy, the scarring is so nasty that if I can't see it, I don't want anyone to see it.
A lot of women have kind of described it as feeling like a Barbie doll. They just have this blank slate of a chest.
To make it look natural, the same doctor went in and tattooed the areola area.
A lot of times what you see that comes out of doctor offices, they're like just a flat pepperoni.
That's a bunch of crap, and we should do better than that. And there are tattoo artists that are doing amazing work.
Doctors go to school for 10 years to do what they do. I have my PhD in tattooing. They may know how to make a beautiful incision, but we know how to draw. We understand pigments, we understand color, we understand skin. I actually even tattooed myself. I've had 16 nipples on my right thigh.
There really isn't any substitute for experience. The doctor's office, at best, maybe going to get 1 or 2 different colors, whereas I'm using maybe 10 different flesh tones, highlights and lowlights to make things look more realistic.
There is no way those are tattoos. You look in the mirror and it just looks just like a real nipple.
It's amazing what an image can do, using art to fully recover from something so traumatic.
I never thought of covering it up.
I'm just gonna put something huge over it and that's it. I want a big tattoo.
It changes them completely. You can see it in their eyes.
I seen how I could still feel beautiful.
Before, I would see the scars, and that was the first thing I would notice in the mirror. And now I really don't see that at all. I just see me.
Today I'm talking to Patrick Norman. Patrick Norman is the director of the documentary film Full Circle. Patrick, say hi.
Hey, everyone. Great to be with you this morning.
Patrick, first question that's really important is, where'd you get the idea for this film?
Yeah, I think one of the most fun things about being a documentary filmmaker is that you never really know where your next idea for a movie is going to come from. And it's sort of hard to draw a through line, I think, from the previous projects I'd done to a film about nipple tattoos, right? And what I like to say is that my first documentary was for high school wrestlers. This one is for their moms. This one was inspired actually by an article. I just happened to come across an article that was highlighting an artist who become prominent for this kind of work. And the article was called The Michelangelo of Nipples. So how do you not click on that, right? But the profile really explained the need for this option, right? And of course, as a layman coming into this with no real experience in the breast cancer world and what these folks go through, I was stunned both by the beauty of the art itself, but the impact it had on the women who were getting these tattoos. And it just happened to be in conversations with friends of mine, people who were themselves breast cancer survivors, who said, hey, look, if I would have known about these options when I started my treatment, it would have made all the difference in the world. And these are people that had gone through, mastectomies, reconstructive surgeries. They'd had doctors do temporary tattoo, not temporary, but medical tattoos on them. So they used a different kind of ink that faded very quickly. And frankly, just left her and so many other women dissatisfied with their results. And so from my perspective, I saw a real opportunity to leverage the power of film and the kind of emotional experience that a film can convey to raise awareness for these tattoos and try to make this available as a resource for the breast cancer community.
Man, that's just amazing. The resources that are available for cancer patients and cancer survivors are very wide. There's a lot of resources. However, I'm going to take that down a bit here. Those resources get very narrow because we're not educated about it. As a cancer survivor, I can tell you that lack of education of what I should do, how I should do it, what physician I should go to, what do I do next, are just so limited. So I'm really, really glad you put this out there. Man, in documentary filmmaking, access is everything. And having tried to open some of those doors before and getting them slammed on me, how did you gain access and get such an intimate, I'm going to say that again, and I'll have to do a little bit edit here. How did you gain access to get, I got a phrase here and I'm just not coming up with her mind. I'm just going to leave it at that. How did you gain access to the patients?
Yeah, right. Because obviously, these are people I'm meeting for the first time, and given the subject matter, this is obviously going to require a lot of trust and a lot of delicacy. And it would seem sort of off-putting, I think, to just have a dude coming in saying, "Hey, let's make a film about your nipples." Right? That's kind of it's a hard pitch. But what we found is that we initially worked with tattoo artists to see if they had any folks who were in their upcoming list of clients that might be willing to participate. And we also just put up our website, a little mission video, and said, look, this is the kind of film we're trying to make. This is why we're trying to make it. And if you're a breast cancer survivor, if you're interested in these tattoos and you'd be willing to share your story, let's talk. And it was really, I think, through that website that we had, I think in the end, all three of our women came through that way. I think we had one woman initially that was potentially going to come through a tattoo artist, but for various reasons that didn't work out. So yeah, it was just a matter of these women saying, look, we want to do something positive with our experience, and if we can, through the sharing of our story, help others, we're happy to go on camera. And it was certainly an eye-opening experience for me, sort of working with them initially, gaining that trust. But I think we did a lot to really allay their fears and include them as much as we could in the filming, because we didn't want it to be a kind of thing where we just sat behind our camera and filmed and then ran away and edited the film. We wanted our subjects to be very much a part of the process. We wanted them to see how we were photographing them and how, what kind of footage we were getting. So we did a lot of things just to make them as comfortable as we possibly could.
Interesting. So, it's got to be really tough being a man doing a film about women. And I'll preface this by saying I've worked on films where I have asked for access and I have been told, you're not one of us. Why are you trying to tell our story? Tell me about that. How did you get around that? What makes you able to tell that story?
That's a great question. And I will say that I think was fortunate that I didn't really encounter resistance, from that perspective. I think the benefit that I had was that I came into this with ignorance and curiosity, which I think is what winds up happening to breast cancer survivors. All of a sudden, you've been given this diagnosis, you're thrown into this new world, you're trying to learn as much about it as quickly as possible. And I think from my perspective, coming into this from outside the breast cancer world, I had a lot of similar questions. I didn't know about some of the mastectomy processes, the expanders, the whole, all the different ordeals that women have to go through physically. I had sort of a general idea, but I think really just by asking questions, by being curious, these women were really willing to open up and share from their experience.
Cool. Paramedical body art. I have never heard that phrase, and I've been in healthcare for a long time. I still don't know it, and I had to look it up and go, what is this about? Give us a 411 on that.
Well, the 411 on paramedical body art is really, I think it's a way of elevating or using traditional tattoo techniques in sort of a new and innovative way. And for some folks, it's as straightforward as getting as close to what you have removed. So in the case of breast cancer, the reason that so many women are left essentially, as they would describe it, like they feel like a Barbie doll after their process. The reason for that is a lot of the cancer cells are actually in the ducts of the nipple and areola themselves. So during the course of a mastectomy, those are often removed. And what doctors generally offer are a variety of extra kinds of surgeries, some of them fairly invasive. They'll offer things like nipple sparing surgeries or nipple reconstructive surgeries, where maybe they take a patch of skin from somewhere else on your body and they tie it up and they form it into what appears to be like a three-dimensional nipple, essentially, and then they might tattoo around that. And what we're really looking at from the paramedical sense is beyond just that, also using tattoos is an alternative to surgery. There are certainly women in the film and plenty of other women who, they may have to go through a mastectomy, they may need reconstruction, but they only want as much surgery as is absolutely necessary. And so for them, having any alternative to more invasive surgeries, I think is really helpful and certainly meaningful and useful for the women in our film. So what we're trying to do is really show the wide range of options that are available and just empower women with the knowledge to make the decision that's best for them.
Cool, cool. When do most women learn about that process? So they've been diagnosed, they instantly are running in, do I need a mastectomy? Do I not need a mastectomy? They start going online, they start researching it, gets frustrating. When do they learn that that process can help them? Do you know?
It varies, and that's as consistent as I've been able to determine in just my research and my talks with folks. Is it really depends on your medical team. We do know that obviously the sooner in your diagnosis and treatment journey you learn about this, the better off you will be. I think this gives something for women to look forward to. It gives them a sense of hope. It gives them something to maybe focus on and think about what options they might want. It just helps them take their mind off of things and give them what really feels like a point of closure at the end of all this. But yeah, I think so much of what we run into is a lack of awareness, right? Or doctors stepping in and saying, "Oh, we'll take care of it," but they bring up those options much later in the course of treatment. So what we're trying to do is just get as much information out there as possible to different support groups, nonprofits, hospital systems, et cetera, so that women can learn about this as early in the process as possible.
It's really interesting because I was going to ask you who's the person who's really informing the women about this? Is it the physician? Is it another caregiver? Is it a nurse? 9 times out of 10, my first thing goes through my mind, it's not the physician. It's probably someone who's more intimately involved and knows the process and says, hey, here's what you can get done. Do you know anything about that? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and I think generally what I've seen is that with breast cancer, you're dealing with a whole team of doctors, right? You've got people who make diagnosis, then the surgeons, people who specialize in reconstruction, and all their various team members as well. So it really does depend. Certainly we're seeing some nonprofits offer resources about this. There's a nonprofit called Personal Inc. that we've been working with since the beginning of the film, and what they're really trying to do is maintain a database, a really accessible list of the tattoo artists all over the world who are doing this work, and try to make these tattoos as affordable and as accessible as possible for women. So, we've been working with them to try to provide resources, but we just see that women find they learn about these tattoos in a number of places. I think certainly if they have a support group where someone else in their group has gone through that process, we find that naturally people sort of run off and show each other their tattoos. They talk about it. There's a lot of word of mouth behind it. But what we're trying to do is just make sure that even more hospital systems can integrate this material and not leave women sort of at the mercy of what nonprofits may offer. We just want to get this as out there as we possibly can.
Yeah. I'm going to freak you out for a second. This is on a personal note. It has nothing to do with you, but it has something to do with me. And I didn't even think about this until I started talking to you. So I lost an eye from an injury 30 years ago. And all of a sudden I'm sitting here and you're talking. They tattooed an iris on my cornea. So I had the iris was totally destroyed and gone. And they didn't have artificial irises yet. So they just put a clear, and the interocular lens, the lens that focuses, was gone. So they just put a clear one in. And of course, all this light comes in, so it doesn't work. So they tried putting in a artificial iris with a contact lens. And I wore that for a couple of years. And then finally, they're like, we've got an idea. We're going to try it. And Minnesota was like really big in this. So they tattooed a cornea they tattooed an iris on my cornea.
Oh my God.
Isn't that freaky? Because they wanted to keep the eye as long as possible. Even though it was pretty damaged, they're like, you never know what's going to happen in the future. You want to try to hold on to it as long as possible. And that's what they did. So yeah, I just remembered that. I totally had forgotten.
That's incredible. And I mean, listen, I've certainly seen all manner of paramedical body art, but I've seen it mostly, in the torso. I never would have thought that you could have tattooed an eye like that. That's awesome. I mean, but again, it's like finding ways of using art to bring closure, right? And really letting the people who are most capable of doing that artistic work take the lead on it, right? As opposed to letting some doctor's assistant come in and do the best they can, right? I think that's really awesome.